May I request everyone to keep standing for the national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Good morning, Honorable Vice President of India, Shri JAGDEEP Dhankar ji, Madam Dr. Sudesh Dhankar ji, Attorney General for India, Shri R. Venkatramani ji, Secretary General Rajya Sabha, Shri P.C. Modi ji, Secretary to the Vice President, Shri Sunil Kumar Gupta ji, Senior Advocate Dr. K.S. CHAUHAN ji, and distinguished audience. A very warm welcome to everyone. Today, we gather here to celebrate the launch of the book, Parliament, Powers, Functions and Privileges, a Comparative Constitutional Perspective, authored by Senior Advocate Dr. K.S. CHAUHAN. To begin with, I invite Dr. K.S. CHAUHAN ji to felicitate the Honorable Vice President. I would now invite Srimati Kanta Chauhan to felicitate Madam Dr. Sudesh Dhankar ji. I would again invite Dr. K.S. CHAUHAN ji to felicitate the Attorney General for India, Shri R. Venkatramani ji. I now invite the author, Dr. K.S. CHAUHAN, to share his thoughts.
I am grateful to the Honorable Vice President, Sri JAGDEEP Dhankar ji, for this special occasion. And Madam Dr. Sudesh Dhankar ji, Honorable Attorney General R. Venkatramani ji, Justice P.S. Teji, Mr. Char has not reached because of traffic, even we were also held up. So, Professor Shiv Kumar and Mr. and Mrs. Vinay Ahuja and friends from academia, bar and family members. I am especially thankful to the Honorable Vice President, Sri JAGDEEP Dhankar ji, as he and his secretariat has made this occasion special for me by organizing this function, by squeezing out of his very busy schedule and a hectic schedule which reflect the love and respect for the subject matter of the book as well as the author, which reflect the present book is second edition of this nature. And as far as my understanding goes, internationally there is no interpretation book on the parliamentary system, because only the houses publish their books for rules, etc. But there are no textbook type of thing. And this book has been revised and updated thoroughly from the lens of comparative constitutional design. The constitutional development and governance under the parliamentary democracy has been a vivid experience, as it seeks to regulate the institutions based on the principles of rule of law and the constitutional principles. French philosopher Montesquieu, in his celebrated work, The Spirit of the Laws, has evolved the theory of separation of powers in a democratic governance in 18th century. The principle of separation of power is getting acceptance, as in the UK, a separate Supreme Court has been established through the Constitutional Reforms Act 2005. There are three pillars on which the constitutional democracy rests: the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. Out of these, the paramount power is wielded in favor of the legislature, that is Parliament, under the scheme of the Constitution of India. The present book has 16 chapters, including 5 new chapters. First edition is the developments of UK Parliament and developments, and then parliamentary committees. It was not there in the earlier book. And constitutionalism and basic structure is a separate chapter which I have added. European Parliament is also added to this, and the American amendment process is a separate chapter. The authoritative works gives a definitive account of all aspects of the organization and working of the House of the People and the Council of States of the Parliament of India, which are akin to the House of Commons and House of Lords respectively of the UK Parliament. Modern India has inherited the British parliamentary form of governance through a written constitution which imposes limitations on the institutions and seeks to strike a balance between all the organs of the state. The book map out the evolution and development of parliament institutions, the practices of the United Kingdom, and how it was ungrafted and re-established in the modern legal system. The democracy is a system of government which embodies a variety of institutions, mechanisms, and ideals of political system based on the will of the people. Kofi Annan, former UN Secretary General, has stated that the building democracy is a complex process. Elections are only a starting point, but if their integrity is compromised, so is the legitimacy of the democracy. The elections in a vibrant democracy of ours is like greatest festival on earth. The election procedures of both the houses of parliament, eligibility, the terms of the president, office of the president, vice president, and members of parliament has been dealt with in great detail in the book. The journey of constitutional democracy and its experience, be the adoption of the US Constitution in the year 1776 to our Constitution on 26th November 1949. The Constituent Assembly has adopted the document on that day, has a journey of struggle, passion, and constitutional sacrifices by the people. We are seeking equal say and recognition in the governance process based on the democratic principles of equality, liberty, fraternity, and justice. The reforms across the globe in the constitutional governance is a byproduct of these sacrifices and struggles. As the chief architect of the Constitution of India, Dr. Babasaheb B.R. Ambedkar, in his last speech to the Constituent Assembly on 25th November 1949, has observed as under, I quote, "We must make our political democracy a social democracy as well. Political democracy cannot last unless there lies at the base of its social democracy. What does social democracy mean? I mean a way of life which recognizes liberty, equality, and fraternity as the principle of life. These principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity are not to be treated as separate items of Trinity. They form a union of Trinity in the sense that, that to diverse one from another is to defeat the very purpose of democracy. Liberty cannot be diversed from the equality, equality cannot be diversed from the liberty, nor can liberty and equality be diversed from the fraternity. Without equality, liberty would produce the supremacy of the few over the many. Equality without liberty would kill individual initiative. Without fraternity, liberty, equality could not be become a natural course of things. It would require a constable to enforce them. At the end, I am grateful to the Honorable Vice President, Sri JAGDEEP Dhankharji, and Madam Dr. Sudesh Dhankharji, and other members on the dais and of the dais, and especially to the Honorable Attorney General, Sri R. Venkatramani for their presence and this function. At this function, I am also thankful to each one of you, especially the officials of the Vice President Secretariat, my friends, family members, for sparing valuable time and being present on this special occasion. Thanking you to one and all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would now invite Secretary General Rajya Sabha, Shri P.C. Modi ji, to share his thoughts.
Honorable Vice President of India, Shri JAGDEEP Dhankar ji, Dr. Sudesh Dhankar ji, Attorney General of India, Shri R. Venkatramani ji, Shri Sunil Kumar Gupta, Secretary, Honorable Vice President of India, Shri K.S. Chauhan, the author, and distinguished guests. It's my privilege to be speaking on this occasion when the second edition of the book titled Parliament, Powers, Functions and Privileges, a Comparative Constitutional Perspective, authored by Dr. K.S. Chauhan, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India, is being released by the Honorable Vice President of India and Chairman Rajya Sabha. Shri K.S. Chauhan needs no introduction. In his close to 4 decades of experience as a practicing advocate, academician, and author, Dr. Chauhan has made invaluable contribution to jurisprudence on parliamentary law, with a special emphasis on comparative parliamentary law and practice. This book is one more feather in his long distinguished career as a legal luminary. The extensive treatment which the central theme of the book has received in its 16 exhaustive and well-researched chapters makes it a real treat for a reader interested in gaining deeper insights into the powers, functions, and privileges of Parliament of India, as enshrined in our Constitution and as compared with those of the parliaments of liberal democracies across the world. The addition of 5 new chapters, including the one on the European Parliament, makes the latest edition of the book even more comprehensive and exhaustive at that. This book provides a truly global perspective as it offers a comprehensive and insightful comparative analysis of parliamentary practices across more than 125 nations, making it highly and extremely useful. This treatise on parliamentary law and practice will be an authentic source of reference for one and all, including practicing advocates, academics, students, and researchers of constitutional and parliamentary law, parliamentarians and secretariats of the parliament and the state legislative assemblies, and students of comparative politics, to name a few. At a personal level, as Secretary General of Rajya Sabha, I will be more than benefited by such an excellent piece of academic research when it comes to dealing with complex matters pertaining to powers, functions, and privileges of Parliament. Out of my personal experience, I can share with this august gathering that while dealing with complex matters pertaining to functioning of both the houses of Parliament, we often have to sift through literature available on comparative parliamentary practice and procedure. The challenge, however, remains to extract authentic and precise information from the available sources. I am sure that this book will prove to be a one-stop solution in our quest for an academic, an authentic and well-researched work on comparative constitutions in the context of parliamentary law and practice. I congratulate Dr. Chauhan for coming up with this comparative treatise on constitution and parliamentary law. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would now invite the Attorney General for India, Shri R. Venkatramani, to share a few words.
It's in the fitness of things that in the presence of the Honorable Vice President, we have two chairpersons here, the chairperson of the Rajya Sabha and the chairperson of the House of the chairperson of the Rajya Sabha. So it's, we have a wonderful occasion. The book, by writing this book with a second updated edition, Chauhan has now become a globalized author. He has gone beyond the boundaries of India. And for long we have been talking about May's parliamentary practice as the only authoritative book to be cited both in Parliament and in courts. I was reading a book on Australian parliamentary practice documented by one David Solomon. So writing about May's parliamentary practice, this is what the author says. This is a fairly long book, about 20 chapters, 966 pages. And this is what he says about May's parliamentary practice, a quote. Within few years, May's parliamentary practice will disappear from the shelves of parliamentary clerks in Canberra, that is Australia, and be relegated to library shelves for the benefit of students of British politics and parliamentary affairs. Meaning thereby, May's parliamentary practice will soon lose its sheen by being the only authoritative book on parliamentary practice and procedure. This was written sometime in 1980s. I'm sure with books like this, it will become not only prophetic, but more realistic that persons like Dr. Chauhan writing book on a comparative constitutional practice and parliamentary practice will now occupy the libraries and shelves of not only parliaments across the globe, but all various law schools and congresses across the globe. I congratulate him for this wonderful, monumental work, and he will continue to work on this much more. And it's not merely a book on parliamentary practice and procedure. He has been able to weave together constitutional law seamlessly with parliamentary practice and procedure. I was also looking at few books which are probably worthy of talking about, where this book will be in a good company, but not many of them are available across the globe on parliamentary practice, functions, and procedure. But when I looked at some of them in my own library, I found that this book is certainly going to occupy a place of pride amongst them. One is a Canadian parliamentary practice published way back in 1884, but a fourth edition reprinted in 2014. And it does not quote about parliamentary practices across the globe. It confines only to Canada and Canadian practices. But way back in 1874, when Thomas Jefferson wrote the first book on Manual of Parliamentary Practice for the then United States Congress coming up, and you see the growth across the world. And you travel from USA to Canada to Australia, then to Europe. And to Europe, I find there is a very recent interesting publication called Parliament and Parliamentarism edited by one Vasily Iheliaman, which talks about the European parliamentary consolidations as a European Union. And you find very interesting examples of how European parliaments are beginning to evolve. So the evolution of democracy and the evolution of parliamentary practice and procedure are so interconnected. And it's very interesting, and that's where I find CHAUHAN's contribution, bringing European parliamentary practice and procedure, with a few examples from, of course, UK. You cannot go, just close your eyes for that, though it's going to be history. Then I also found an interesting book which corresponds to this book. It's about Japan. Japan's Parliament by Hans Berrywold, first published in 1974, is running in a reprint in 2010, which means CHAUHAN will now again, I say, it will occupy a reprint, set of authors who will be always in demand. And I certainly do congratulate him for his wonderful work. And just to say closing remarks. Now, all of us talk about the global challenges of democracy. A lot of literature is being written about failures of democracy and mistakes being committed by governments across the globe. But what comes to my mind is that while we do not have one particular model of evolution of democratical practice and parliamentary evolutions across the globe, I find that India is in a position to offer to the rest of the world what best practice of parliament can be. But at the same time, I think as a very humble student of law and for a very distant, humble student of politics and political science, I say parliament is not Hyde Park nor Ram Leela Maidan. It's a different issue altogether. It has to be a place of trust, scholarship, analysis, reflection, promoting trust, public trust and all that. So what Supreme Court has been able to do for India, I think Parliament should be able to do. And it's in that context, I think, this is not only a book for judges and lawyers, it's a book for parliamentarians also. I once again congratulate him for this wonderful work. I wish you more and more of such copies of legal literature. And to conclude, getting your book released in the August presence of the Honorable Vice President, who himself is a parliamentary practice and procedure. And this is the best place to be, the book to be released. And I wish you well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. With due respect, I now request the Honorable Vice President to kindly launch the book. Thank you, sir. I would now request the Honorable Vice President, Shri JAGDEEP DHANKHAR ji, to kindly address the gathering.
Good morning, all of you. Attorney General of India, Shri R. Venkatramani ji, Secretary General Rajya Sabha, Shri P.C. Modi, Secretary to Vice President of India, Shri Sunil Kumar Gupta, distinguished author, senior advocate, Dr. K.S. Chauhan, and distinguished audience, I know most of you. I would like to recognize by name, but then it will be difficult if I miss someone. Divya Singh agrees, am I right? She agrees. Well, the book, the 2 volumes, are much beyond the weight it has, more than their weight. We had an excellent discourse. First introduction by the author, then the man who is in action, Secretary General Rajya Sabha, Shri P.C. Modi. He also, in his brief address, reflected on the relevance of it. And then we had the Attorney General of India, as usual, making his contribution, in-depth contribution, in global perspective. And that being the situation, I would have hardly to add anything. At best, I can repackage. And repackaging is something we all must avoid. So my address will be brief. I have known Dr. Chauhan ever since I came to Delhi as a member of parliament in 1989. He was enrolled as an advocate in 1987. I have seen his passion. I have seen his mission. He has been focusing on this subject for decades. As a matter of fact, he reminds me of the challenges the society has created for us. In his long journey, he faced headwinds. Many a time I had to sit with him and lament that we'll have to work much harder to get recognized. We'll have to do much more than others. I remember when he first focused on anti-defection law. With passion, with mission. He wanted to read too much of morality in it. I said too much because I am guided by the contemporaneous moral of the society. And then he took to writing this. It took him quite long to be designated senior. And he was designated because there was no way out. If such a person is reflecting on parliament, powers, functions and privileges, it is commendable. Because democracy is reflected first by parliament. There can be no democracy without parliament. And ladies and gentlemen, we happen to be the oldest, the mother of democracy, at the moment most vibrant. No country in the world has constitutionally structured democracy at all levels. But our constitution has provided for democracy at the village level, at the district level, at the municipal level, at the state level, and at the central level. We are the only country in the world. Parliament, if it is to be defined, is the most possible platform of representation of the people. I say most possible because eligibility to vote has an age factor, and those below that age are not entitled to reflect themselves. Therefore, it is not very idealistic, but it is very close to idealism. So Parliament reflects will of the people. It is the most pure, sanctified platform where views of the people converge, and there is emergence of the executive. The executive is dependent on Parliament. It has to be approved by Parliament, the House of the People. And that being so, we have to focus first on the electoral system. Because if the electoral system is vitiated, so would be the representation in the parliament. We have been accredited rightly globally. We have an election commission that has worked. And it has worked in a fashion that global recognition is coming to it. Many countries in the world want their elections to be overseen by our election commission. It's a constitutional body. There will always be urge to criticize, to get the best of it. But we all are assured, because our bureaucracy is so trained, our election machinery is so greased and fueled, independence is never a casualty. So we have a parliament. Now, what is parliament required to do? What are its powers? One obvious power of the parliament is to hold the executive accountable. The executive is held accountable only through parliamentary mechanism. What does that require? It requires that the parliament functions through dialogue, debate, discussion, and deliberation. But if parliament is dysfunctional, parliament is ravaged, sacrileged by disruptions and disruptions, accountability does not take place. I have been signaling to the opposition many a times that the government is in good shape when parliament is dysfunctional, because no one wants to be held accountable. And I have a firm view that if you keep an institution or an individual above scrutiny or probe, that is the surest way to degeneration. So the primary function of the parliament is, it must be functional, optimally functional. It must have dialogue and debate. It must hold the government accountable. Second, the parliament is required to translate aspirations of the people. Those aspirations have to be realized. There has to be policy evolution. Now look at what has happened in the last few years. People have tested development. People have come to have banking inclusion, toilet in the house, gas connection in the house, a house of their own by virtue of affordable housing, connectivity in the villages, road connectivity, school education, potable water. When these deliveries have taken place, when transparent, accountable mechanism is in place because of digitization, the nation is in aspirational mood. It never saw the development it saw in the last 10 years. But now they want more. The urge is aspirational. That aspirational urge has to be satisfied by the parliamentarians engaging in overdrive by evolution of policies. And that can emanate only when the parliament functions. Undoubtedly, ours is an economy on the rise. No country has had rise of the kind we have had in last decade. We are fifth global economy, we will be the third. But the challenge is there. Eightfold increase in per capita income has to be achieved for a developed nation status. And that can happen only when parliament, its committees, perform and outperform themselves. That's the second thing the parliament has to do. Another function of parliament is, it is a platform where you think ahead of times. We are living in times, we are on quicksand of technology. Another industrial revolution, disruptive technologies. Things are changing by the seconds. We have to evolve policies of regulation. We have to find methodology to convert challenges into opportunities. No doubt we are resisting progress. But our progress has to be measured in comparable terms now. When we are ignited by an ecosystem of hope and possibility, our young minds want more to be done, and for that, Parliament is a platform. Secondly, Parliament does not exercise its powers. There can be no vacuum. We will have other organs stepping in. People will take to agitations. People will find a way out. And therefore, if Parliament is non-functional, it will gradually get into irrelevance groove, and that will be a threat to democracy. So, a functional Parliament is quintessence to survival of democracy, because it is Parliament that allows you power of expression. I am coming to privileges. A power of expression where no one can question. What you say in Parliament, you are immunized from any other concern. You can't be taken to civil court. You can't read culpability in it. When you have that supreme authority, that what you say in Parliament, no citizen of this country, 1.4 billion people, can take recourse to law if they are hurt. That puts a heavy obligation on Parliament itself. The privileges come with heavy responsibility. I have said on occasions, and even by way of point of order decision, Parliament is not a place for free fall of information. Parliament is not a place where you settle scores with people or institutions that cannot have their say in Parliament. Every word is spoken in Parliament, every document tabled has to be authenticated. Because your privileges cannot graduate to a level of trampling privileges of millions of others. And therefore, members of Parliament have to show by example, by conduct, by demeanor, which can be emulated by others. And at this time in the history, at this phase of history, a turning point, fortunately for all of us, Bharat is recognized as a global power. This century is bound to belong to us. We are the rightful claimants of it. We are on the right track. But if there are certain discordant situations, the only place to smoothen those rough edges is Parliament. Quite often, on many occasions, we have to decide issues on account of practice. We were taking recourse to Mayor's parliamentary practice, colon sector. But we have judges by that name, sir, but colon sector were very different. They were connected to parliamentary institution in capacity like Mr. P.C. Modi is at the moment. But now we have Dr. CHAUHAN. It is not easy to even visualize fructifying such a venture. Because surely the author can't be commercially rewarded. Very few will take recourse to these books. They will be researchers, law students, policy makers, parliamentarians, and the kind. Their number is limited. So what you have done, Dr. CHAUHAN, is commendable. It is service to the nation. It is a facet which we all must subscribe. I have had the occasion to glance through the book, and I found he has worked so hard, so diligently. When it came to committees, he quoted one of the former prime ministers of UK. Not easy. You can quote only when you read a large material. Dr. CHAUHAN has been associated with cases that reflect on parliamentary practice. parliamentary ethics. One which I can quote is Rajaram Pal case. Just imagine my pain. Only a month back or so, we found on a particular seat in Rajya Sabha, Council of States, a bed of notes, rupees 500 denomination. What has really pained me, no one has come to claim it. That's a very serious issue. We can carry notes, maybe out of necessity, but then no one has claimed. That's a collective challenge to our ethical standards. For a long time, this country did not have a committee on ethics. It was only in the last century, in late 90s, that Rajya Sabha for the first time came to have a committee on ethics which is functional. As chairman Rajya Sabha, I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, anyone who is there in Rajya Sabha as a member is a human resource to reckon with. Brilliant academic credentials, great exposure and experience. But when it comes to action, they are guided by someone else. I would urge that a parliament will fructify only if the parliamentarians have their free say on issues. I envy their enormous talent, their capacity, their contribution. They are very learned people. And therefore I am sure this book will be an eye-opener to those who urge to take this nation forward. This is a book not to be read from A to Z. This is a reference book, the 2 volumes. And that Dr. Chauhan, I have seen, has facilitated. If you wish to focus on a particular subject, you do it. I'm sure there will be an electronic version of it. And it will have a search component so that one can immediately look for it. So while Dr. Chauhan, it may not be fiscally rewarding for you, you and the publisher would barely manage to strike the balance. On a personal satisfaction, you should be delighted. Secondly, just imagine, don't go by weight, don't go by number of pages. To pen down these manifold pages had to be read by him. Because we are a country where people look, आपके कपड़े में दाग कहाँ है देवेंद्र जी? देवेंद्र सिंह जी, मैं दाग को देखूंगा, मेरी नजर जाएगी. We must learn to look the positive side of it. And therefore, distinguished audience, I wish the author well. At our level, whatever we can do, the Secretary General will take steps. We have already discussed, his presence speaks about it. But I am sure all legislatures in the country and outside will be enormously benefited by this treatise, which is testament of erudition, dedication, and hard work. Once again, congratulations to you, and congratulations also to Mrs. Chauhan and the family members. They allowed you to work so. Their sacrifice is integrated into it. Since I know the entire family, my journey and that of Dr. Chauhan has been on 2 rails. People may not be knowing about it. We have known each other from very close quarters. We have had common problems, common suffering, common pain. On occasions we have discussed only through body language. We have seen for ourselves the kind of headwind we face the kind of air pockets we land in. We have faced situations which I can't describe. I leave it at that. Congratulations, Dr. Chauhan. Please continue with it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
MNT न्यूज़ नेटवर्क को सब्सक्राइब करें, लाइक और फॉलो करना ना भूलें। साथ ही बेल आइकॉन दबाकर जन जागृति की मुहिम में जुड़े